Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the work session of the Mayor and Council of the Town of Berlin. Today is Monday, February 27th, 2023. I apologize for tuning in just a few minutes behind 6, but we're here and we're live. The work session for this evening is designed to continue our discussion from last week regarding a multi-year plan for the use of local impact grant funds. They're the casino revenues that we receive annually. They're defined by legislation. So what we'll do is we're going to review the projects or the projected LIG revenues for 2024, 2025, and 2026, and then discuss some of the prioritization of the projects. So within the work session packet, there is a memo. I just fine-tuned the one that we had from last week and brought the stuff for discussion purposes up to the front. The fiscal years are 2024, 2025, and 2026. FY 2024, we're projecting about $418,000 in LIG revenues. Fiscal year 2025, about $458,000 in LIG revenues. Fiscal year 2026, about $502,000 in projected revenues. Now, keep in mind, these are projections. None of that is set in stone. Some of the potential projects that we discussed at our last meeting were LEOPS, a community center, buildings such as Public Works and Town Hall, infrastructure such as streets, enterprise fund capital projects, downtown beautification, an entertainment venue at Heron Park, and park or playground equipment. We also discussed capital reserve funding for the Berlin Fire Company or Berlin Fire Company EMS, AEDs, radios, and GIS. So that's the extent of the review from last week. If something's missing, somebody can add that from the group, and we can make note of that for the record.
I think one of Jack's project was wastewater treatment plant.
I think we discussed whether or not you could go from the general fund to an enterprise fund. I'm not seeing anything that says we can't. The finance director might have some more information than what I have. I have not had a chance to get some concrete feedback on that from the Department of Legislative Services, but everything that I'm reading says infrastructure, and it does not exclude, same thing with LEOPS, it doesn't exclude pension systems, it doesn't exclude enterprise funds. So I think that there is that opportunity, but we can, if we have a project that kind of comes to the surface, we can always run that by Legislative Services and go from there.
So in terms of infrastructure, can we dial that down and mention specific?
Yeah.
Like one of the things I mentioned was giving West Street some love, much needed love.
I think West Street needs some love.
West Street needs love.
Whether it's through this pot or something else, West Street definitely needs love.
That would include sidewalks, paving, drainage.
That full workup that we have on file.
Now this infrastructure is different from mapping our public.
So the mapping stuff that you brought up is down at the last bullet, which is that GIS work. And we said that I think about $20,000 could get us, whether it's out of this or whether it's out of the general fund, about $20,000 could get us pretty far. And we probably wouldn't even tap that every year.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to keep about that amount on file with them.
So I just also wanted to throw out here, I think this is it's probably under infrastructure, but the stormwater, and also Councilmember Green brought up last time, and I wholeheartedly agree to look at the water and sewer capital fees and the stormwater fee that was increased about 6 months ago. Seeing if this LDC funding could possibly, eliminate that for our residents. And also just wanted to have, this came up, someone reached out to me directly about the possibility of using LDC for a part-time code enforcement position. I think that'd be up for discussion, but actually I want to say something first before we get into that part, because I see I marked it here, radios. Mayor, you had mentioned, I believe, last meeting it was for 20 radios, 140,000, was that 7,000 each?
While we're talking, I'll pull it up.
Okay. Well, the only reason I just had some questions on that. I mean, were you just looking to get on the county system with that?
Yeah, it's all, we actually, from the 911 system, that's the quote.
Okay.
So,
All right. So that was my only question. But, so I believe you said it was around 140,000. But if the group is up for it, I would like to have a little discussion on a code enforcement officer position. If the group decides it might be more applicable in the general fund and in an open session, we can wait till then.
Are you thinking like a part-time position?
I think part-time probably to start. I know we're in the midst of a salary study now, so it won't behoove us to wait until after that's really complete anyway. But I do want to say it's nothing negative toward our planning department. They're doing a great job, but it's a small group with a lot of work. And with the short-term rentals ordinances that we approved, it just added on. So I think that with a code enforcement position, probably part-time to start, get the logistics ready, that'll help. And by the way, it helps enforce the rules that we have on the books already. So I didn't want to monopolize all the time.
To answer your question, it's $124,613.20. This is one of the two quotes.
Oh, okay.
I want to say the other one was slightly higher, like the 140 range for the radios. And that's from, those are Motorola's. I think there's a quote also in my inbox for Harris, which is like a Ford and Chevrolet. So we'd want to bring it in line with what the chief, I think you have Harris now, right?
Correct.
So we'd want to keep it in line and consistent with what we're using, so.
And then 20?
No, tell me again how it is projected that these radios will be used.
They would be used, you're saying across the board, but
Yeah.
so the way that it's set, we have a municipal channel that already exists. Other municipalities within the county as well as Ocean Pines have, I think Ocean Pines has a municipal channel. And that can be used from anything from the trash truck talking to the street sweeper, that can be used from water talking to electric, police talking to any one of them listening to what's going on. Sometimes they can't switch over mainly and talk on a certain channel, but they could listen. So then outside of the daily operations of things, if we had a storm and we have that cross group working, they can set up like a coordination channel where police, fire, and municipal folks could all be coordinating with one another. Same thing with like an event.
And these radios could be used at downtown events when their cell phones just go crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, there's times that cell phone communication works, and that's one-to-one, right? But when you want like a group to be on the same page, or folks to know what's going on, and really, that's of the essence during an incident or during an event, where you want everybody to be on that same page. That's where radio comes in handy.
How many and how much? Because I didn't write it down.
Well, I would suggest that we take it in increments, much like what we do computers and other capital electronics, I should say. And 20 of them came to about 125,000. But we would need probably another round of that a subsequent year. And after that, we should be pretty close to where we need to be.
So would these radios work in conjunction with what the police department has?
Absolutely.
Or would you replace all those?
Well, actually, what we would do and what we proposed last time was to, and this is the recommendation of the 911 Center and what other municipalities have done as well in Worcester County, is purchase the new radios, give those to the police department, because their radios should be the most, not against anybody else, but they have the most life-threatening function. They should have the brand new ones. Take theirs that are used, channel those to the departments that are really on the front lines. Take the remaining new radios and give those mainly to the department directors that need them. Not every department director would have one, but those that are managing those staff. And that's where you put your new radios. You kind of filter those in so that folks that are on the front line of maybe sanitation or streets or water resources or electric aren't beating a brand new radio up.
And I do like the idea of phasing this in. We may not need 20 right away.
We need
but
40 right away, but we needed 20 last year
Yeah,
when
I
it was
mean,
cut.
The basic operations, the day-to-day operations, yes, but I was thinking a little bit more like events and emergency preparedness as well. That's
But
where I was coming from. But you need them. No, I
So
understand.
you're at like a critical point where if you order fewer, right? And I know 20, it's easy to talk about numbers, but there is such thing as too few because then you can't use them. And that's kind of, the 20 would be an operational level where you could start to implement the use. And then you would have to build up on that.
And can these radios be tuned to work with the county channel? as well?
They actually-
Multiple channels?
Well, they work on a county system. So we already have the Town of Berlin channel. For years, we did this. We did this already. And it's a county system. It monitors the county channels. We can select which ones, and we want buy-in from the chief, we want buy-in from the fire department as well, and the county. What channels do you think are the most important? Which ones do you not want folks accessing? And which ones are they able to listen to versus talk on? So, but the county has folks that do that every day. We lean on them for that.
And the GIS that you recommended, are you talking about getting the Trimble, or are you talking about doing the
No,
mapping survey?
like what we talked about, so I know everybody wasn't in that meeting, but we had a meeting with the Eastern Shore Regional GIS, and they're the folks that did our housing study. They're the folks that do a lot of the work in the county, unless a municipality has their own GIS system. And to what you're talking about with the Trimble, we might have some other ways we can accomplish that, which that's to be able to map a certain piece of equipment at a certain precise area. The GIS services, as Logan mentioned, there are other municipalities that have had almost like a retainer agreement with about $20,000 on hand. I think the group that he cited had 20 grand, and they said it puts them in the front of the line. Sometimes they tap that money, sometimes they don't, but they expense other available like grant funds, like through Tri-County and stuff like that first, if they can.
And they come in and map the entire underground.
We would have to work to that. We're in a spot now where we have GIS, but as you know, and other folks know on here, and our department had certainly known, we have a lot that we still need to cover.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 1 year. It's going to be a multi-year step process. Yeah, and we're going to have to kind of say, what's the low-hanging fruit? Where do we want to go? We've talked, to your point, Councilmember Orris, you brought up a planning, code enforcement officer. We've talked about some version of like a citizen reporter, but not maybe some other area, learning from some challenges that others have had and tailoring one that could be more suitable for our needs. And what that might look like is a dashboard that, like, on a map that our department heads can see, hey, look, I have a report of a water leak here, I have a report of a house that has tall grass here, something that we can all see. So when oftentimes we'll all get similar phone calls on a certain issue, and sometimes we know about it, sometimes we don't know about it, and that way we'd be able to say, hey, look, okay, I see that a citizen just said something about 201 Buckingham Road, my house, and that property has tall grass. I received a citizen complaint, but I see that it's also flagged on here, so I'm going to just monitor that progress. Citizens can report that anonymously in some ways. We could set that up whether we want that or not, but it gives a nice little spatial sense of where things are and what the challenges are.
Well, it does, but it also, there has to be some sort of enforcement, some sort of, if we have a rule on the, I say a rule, if there's a rule on the book and it's just not being followed in terms of zoning or whatnot, it's tall grass. I just think that another body it wouldn't be the burden, wouldn't just be on Dave and Carol to go out there and say, hey, cut your grass.
I'm not saying that this would do away with the position.
Yeah, oh, okay.
I'm saying that I think it could help with some of the challenges that you're bringing up.
Yeah, I'm
That's it.
open minded, it's discussion.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I did not like it, thank you.
I really would like for us to be more proactive when it comes to code enforcement and things of this nature. As it stands now, we are totally dependent upon, not totally, but for a large part, we are dependent upon citizen complaints. And that's okay, but we should not strive to put our citizens in those situations to snitch on their neighbors. I think we just need to be more proactive and be out there looking for ourselves.
And I agree with you. And we used to have a time when we had a code enforcement officer. And I believe that was an additional position within planning. That's not there now. But then the other side is, the interesting part, the town code says that we shall have a code enforcement officer. But those duties have been sent over to the planning department, which they're busy. So there might be some better ways that we can tackle similar challenges, whether that's full-time, whether that's part-time, we don't know. But
I think we're looking for
Yeah, I think the proactive versus reactive. You know, I would go probably totally reactive, really, honestly. And it's not disparaging anybody on staff, you know, it's full plates. But we all got an alert today, you know, of infraction or perceived infraction. And we know where that goes, right? You know, to an individual that's plates pretty full. So, yeah, I support that too. I think, you know, my concern is to create a new position, budget impact, right?
yeah, and if Dave was here, I'm sure he would say he wants additional help. I know he said that to us.
Yes, that's
So
right.
he's said that multiple
Yeah.
times. The restricting part is dollars and cents.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, I love the idea of this casino impact funds is that I'm really for it all. I like it all. I mean, I'm totally in support of really everything. It's just about figuring out the dollars and where it can go and how it can help the budget in a way that helps our citizens bear less of the brunt of potential revenue shortage. You know, so I'm open to, and with that lens, pretty much in support of any of these projects. But I wanted to see, you know, so we have a projection here of $418,142. I mean, and I believe the mayor, you said maybe we would, you know, as far as dollars and cents, would it be wise of us at this point, with budget planning near and dear or right away in many ways already, to start talking dollars and cents of some of these projects, percentages or things like that to help with the budget planning?
Absolutely, and as I said last week, I think that we can't construct this plan until after the general fund work session and after the utility fund work session, because none of us have seen the budget yet. We don't know, we've heard things from departments and all that. We haven't even had a single budget meeting yet. So related to that, I think it's important for us to see those things in front of us and then say, okay, well, we have these lists of projects and some of them are on this list, some of them are things that we truly need. Where does it all come in at?
Yeah, and I guess that's why
So-
we put the horse before the cart a little bit.
We
before
are.
that, you know, now,
So.
or like at this meeting, you know, discussing what dollars amounts that we want to go to certain things.
I recommended that we not have this meeting last time, so we're here.
I mean, I guess I don't feel like it's too early to start talking dollars, you know, for the ops or the percentage of the distribution or, you know, you know where I am on that. I like the idea of phasing it out. But I'll leave it to our, you know, my colleagues here as far as how far we dive, how deep a dive we go here. I think, I don't know if anybody's opposed to any, I don't think actually AEDs, can I get a little explanation on?
Yeah, we talked about AEDs in our parks, and that was something that was talked about at the Parks Commission. They're about, I think somewhere on the Eastern Shore just put them in recently, about $7,000 to $10,000 a
Okay,
pop.
gotcha.
Now, we don't know what infrastructure we need to get to that point, probably electricity.
Right.
But we don't have AEDs in our parks currently.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we've all talked about, improving the safety. Just something that I think we need to have on the forefront.
Yeah, look, I like the
But
idea.
about $10,000 a pop.
Yeah.
So,
So some of the projects that might have a higher dollar cost, like, let's say, a West Street redo, I saw us borrowing the money to do that and using this money for a few years to pay that debt off.
similar model to what we did with the police station.
Exactly, exactly, and that might happen for the community center or whatever project.
Except the only thing is we didn't go to the financing market for that. We financed that internally.
Correct, we could still do that.
I don't know if I'd do that, but it's a possibility.
It's up for discussion, or
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to do that? Because of the uncertainty of the casino dollar?
Well, I mean, where
Just-
are you gonna take it from? It's a couple $1 million project. What's that?
He wants to use somebody else's money.
He wants to use general fund, he wants to use general fund money, I say that we finance it. Yeah, I use somebody else's money.
borrow against it.
But yeah, and the reason I say not to take it from ourselves is because we just got our general fund reserves built up. A project like that would be a couple $1 million, it would deplete the whole thing.
I think it would be more like 5 or 6 million.
Yeah. So,
But we could start it now and pay that debt down, however we work it out.
I think, I agree with Councilmember Green here a little bit. I mean, all of these are important and all these to do. I mean, if I had to rank anything, well, we're obviously looking to use LEOPS, but I guess infrastructure would be on my top.
yeah, but what projects are helpful for us to put dollars and cents to, if we could talk specifics?
Well, I mean, I would just say capital, because it's, I don't know what exactly that is, but we have these fees that are going to capital, and alleviate that from the resident.
So your recommendation would be to use LIG funds and get rid of the capital fees for water and sewer?
And the stormwater additional fee, whatever that is.
To roll back those?
To roll back those and then use.
What would that look like dollars and cents wise now? Our finance director?
If we can.
For everybody
because
watching
those
it.
are enterprise funds, if we can do that.
You mean the new add-on fees, right?
Yes, well, yes, the.
Some are already in place.
That can be up for discussion too, but I would, if we can't, I would like to at least reduce those fees to where they were, if we can, or if LDC is going to do capital altogether, then we can maybe have that discussion too. But can you clarify, Natalie, can we?
So
How
the
did that
first
work?
step is to make sure that the LDC funds can be applicable to enterprise funds. That's the first step.
Okay.
Because from what I have reviewed, paperwork-wise submitted from different municipalities, I have not seen others applying LDC funds to water or sewer or stormwater. It's mainly applied to general fund. And historically, we have done the same. We kept the LDC funds, general fund applications only. So if LDC will approve the future use of LDC for enterprise funds, then we can potentially discuss what projects we can do and how much we can allocate. Now, the capital service fee for water and sewer have been done through the study and agreed upon to set aside for future water and wastewater plant expansion, potentially repairs and replacements of projects that need it. Because even though we have ARPA right now in place and we're conducting several projects to improve the water and wastewater situations, sooner or later that's going to exhaust itself. So the service fee intent is to set aside for a future, and I say future, 5 to 10 years projects in the future. What we have as of today, I have sent you an email with response, is not merely even to start any project in wastewater or water.
Yes, and since you, thank you.
So
Thank you for that.
canceling the service fee, as my take on it, I understand it's a burden on the citizens, but it will be applied for the future capital projects to improve the water quality and wastewater expansion and repairs that will need to be done in the future. Rolling them completely out, what is the assurance that we will have the slots revenue fund at this projections going forward? I cannot give this assurance, because if another COVID or something happens like what happened in the past and we did not have revenues at all, what if it will be a reduction in revenues? Slots revenues is very volatile revenue. It's not fixed. It's dependable on so many factors. So I would not suggest to roll out the capital service fees, back out of them, and then just hope that LDC will support the wastewater projects.
Right, and I mean, and that's a good point, but I also think that we should keep in mind here that the SERPAC study, was it SERPAC? SERCAP, excuse me, SERCAP study did have these fees in as an interim until those meters were in. So I think we should also keep that.
I'm sorry,
That's
I would not agree with that. We have not recovered in the past capital expenditures through the regular water and sewer fees at all. So the suggestion was to implement them as a separate fee, aside from increasing the service actual sales for water that was the reason, because we do not recover the capital expenditures through the water and sewer rates at all.
Yeah, I want to reiterate, the CERCAP report states that the capital fees, now it doesn't, that report did not include stormwater.
No, I'm just.
The
no, I know that.
CERCAP, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. The CERCAP report stated that the recommendation to get our enterprise funds to where they need to be, investing in the aging infrastructure, and to the point where our,
It's right here. This is the slide.
yeah, well, and to get us to the point where our fund is actually in a suitable position to borrow funds, right, was to implement those capital fees. It's not pending the installation of the meters. That's a whole separate rate restructuring portion. It's not related to the capital fees. Is there a question about that?
No, there's not a question. I'm
Okay.
not gonna go into that, but,
It's just what the report says.
okay, well, we're not gonna bicker like that. If we can get a reduction somehow, I think that would be, I think everyone's on board, well, I can't say that. I hope my colleagues are on board with that as in regards to those fees, perhaps not a total elimination, but the increase that was proposed before we even did anything with the smart meters, my opinion of the report is different than others, I think was a little bit premature. So any way we can help in that area would be great.
Can we get the dollars and cents? I know it was done via email. Do you have that?
I don't have it in front of me.
I think I have. Just so that we are clear on what the dollars and cents look like for
I
that
can-
project.
I can
You got
pull
it?
Yeah, I can pull
Go
it up
ahead.
right
Yeah.
here.
Well, the amounts that I sent you, that was as of the date of the email. So it's not, we have implemented them in October. We haven't even had the full year.
It's not a full year.
No, but we're at 5 months, right?
Right.
So it has, as of today, which is February 24th, we've received 180,000 capital service fees. Water was 46 of that, sewer was 134. As of today, we recorded 149,000 in stormwater revenue.
So,
Stormwater revenue
but-
reflects the total revenue
Right.
received.
Yes.
It's not an increase, it's a total revenue. So the stormwater revenue situation is a little different than the service fees.
so I just want to make sure I have the numbers correct. You're saying water was 46,
So,
stormwater was 134, or sewer was 134, and stormwater was what?
Well, 49 is the
That's
total
two
revenue.
revenue.
That's 5 months.
That's 5 months. Yeah,
So we'd have to annualize that.
Yeah.
yes.
Where do you go?
And I suggested 46 water, 134 sewer, 149 storm. So, where was I? Just arbitrary ranking. The GIS, BFC, capital reserve funding for the fire, and then the buildings, that, just ranking what's listed here. To kind of also piggyback with what we talked about last work session.
Natalie, while it's on my mind, don't you think it would be worth it for us to take a hard look at the impact fees we charge and possibly raise those to put the burden on developers coming in and developing large tracts of land in order to raise funds for future expansion of water and sewer?
That would be another discussion and decision to make.
Well, I'm asking your
I mean,
opinion. Do you think that would be,
I cannot advocate to raise the impact fees. Impact fees is very specific as well, and dependent on how many new developments we're going to have and how much you want to raise them to be competitive with other communities to develop more lands.
And-
It's another totally different aspect.
And to answer some of your question also, I think included in your goals for 2023, calendar year 2023, is to look at those fees.
okay,
And,
that's what I'm
yeah, that's why I was
We
trying to
can
help you.
definitely look at that. We
And
can
to
definitely-
evaluate them, and then along with, I think you've talked about business license fees as well.
Yes.
We've talked about parking stuff,
Especially
so
downtown.
that's all
Business
included
license,
in
yeah.
something we'd like to look at.
definitely needs to be.
Yeah.
But just to look at the impact fees, what we have projected, for example, fiscal '23, we're not near collecting them, and whether we will or not, with the cost of construction material and everything.
No,
And I don't think we've progressed, and towards the end of the year, even complete the goal that we set for fiscal '23. So impact fees is up and down.
Yeah.
All right, so far, just for the sake of our discussion, we've got about 25 more minutes. We've talked about possible water, sewer, stormwater fees that were implemented for capital and for operational purposes. We've talked about GIS. We've talked about West Street. I don't even begin to have a number for that, but we can figure it out. I know we've looked into pricing that out as a whole. We've talked about, I think we said GIS, right? We've talked about LEOPS for some portion of this.
Community center.
Community center. Now, with projects like that, like Steve, you've talked about like a split. What's in your mind as far as a split, just so we have something down on paper?
Well, in my mind, I just see as many uses as possible. I know Jay had a spreadsheet of LEOPS in the first year of 150. I think that would be an acceptable start. And then going from there with community center down, maybe I'll take another 100 for a community center. I'm just going off of, Jay took the time to create a spreadsheet. I thought that was a great place to start. I don't want to deter here too much. The infrastructure. So we have a capital project list, right, from department heads.
We have what we have is a draft capital plan,
Yeah.
and what we do is each budget year, it works 5 years out.
Right.
Each budget year, the year that we're getting ready to approach should be our most accurate, and then it'll fade with accuracy, but still projecting
Right.
5 years out. And by the time we complete one, we go back to the next end of that list and start planning again.
Yeah. So what I noticed, because it's the first time really looking at this, is it's full of must-haves, right?
Where's that?
The capital project.
Oh, yeah.
list. Yeah, but it's full of must-haves.
And that's not
So-
even the extent of it.
Right. Under streets, West Street, interestingly enough, is not on here. But I still.
But I don't think it's,
agree
not-
that's
I
important.
think that it's a must, like people, we have that ranked,
Right.
but that's ranked within the context of available funds.
Right, gotcha.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's exactly
I
the
mean,
case. West
that
Street,
makes
quite
sense.
frankly, is so far out of reach
Yeah.
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 that,
So do we create a West Street fund,
Or we start
single
to,
impact dollars?
or you start to tackle it the same way we did from Broad to Washington. Maybe the next phase is halfway to the point where I think Jamie wants to see, we can always bring him in for future discussions, but I think he'd like to see something as far as maybe a little bit of an easement or something using the right-of-way where Worcester County owns some land. I think he wants to put
Yes.
something there. What that looks like, something's coming out of the street and going off to the side. So maybe we go to that point, or we work from West Buckingham down and then meet in the middle, somewhere in there. But
Right.
we might have to start doing like what we do for stormwater and chunking the project out.
Yeah, it makes sense with the elementary school.
from a practical standpoint,
Or we tie
we
it
would
to
love to
some
be able
work.
to do the whole project. Because once you start tearing the street up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you're then going to come back and tear it up again to do another piece, and it doesn't make sense from a practical point of view. However, from a money point of view, it may be what has to happen, just to get it rolling.
And maybe what we do too is, I know it's a couple fiscal years down, it doesn't preclude us from planning, but maybe the time that we tackle a portion of West Street is the same time when they start to redo the elementary school. And then we start to look at it in context with that, and maybe combining some of that with some of our requests for fiscal year dollars in grants from the county. Just depending on traffic flow, so.
On the county portion, we can get them to pay for sidewalks on
That's
there.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We start to then look at it in context of the school design, and then we can have a more fruitful discussion. Doesn't mean we can't work on that now, it just means that that might be a supporting way to move forward. So,
You would at least need to do sections, soup to nuts. You may not be able to do the whole street that way, but you definitely don't want to put in sidewalks and come back 2 years later and rip them out to do something underneath them. So.
and the underlying infrastructure needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's not just about paving and sidewalks.
I see your hand, but we generally don't take comment during this portion.
I'll save it for the meeting.
Thank you. That, it's just the structure of a work session. All right, so far, I've heard, just summarizing to get us where we need to be. About 20 for GIS, about 150 for LEOPS, about 100 for a community center, some level maybe for capital fees. I know we talked about a code enforcement position. What type of dollars and cents would you want to put towards something like that?
Well, I mean, earlier, when I was thinking about this, or over the weekend, I can't remember when now, I did just a search, and it was, I don't know, the salary probably ranges from 50 to 60, then you would add, 30% for benefits and whatnot. So.
If you gave us like a base, whether you want that to be a full-time, whether the group wants that to be a full-time position, whether you want that to be part-time contractual, that dictates a lot of.
So Ocean
The
City
frame,
hired,
yeah.
yeah, Ocean City hired one in the spring. It was up to round up $24 an hour, with 40 hours, right? That's about math, 50,000, I think.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm close.
49,920.
Good job, Steve.
Times 1,060 hours.
So if you
Math is
do
hard.
half,
25, right?
yeah, I mean, that's just the,
That's for the
So
part-time.
we'd be looking at a part-time versus a full-time
what
position.
do you think about that, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I think something is helpful, and I think at this point, part-time might probably be the way to go to get our feet wet in the pool of code enforcement.
We used to be there.
Again, in code enforcement.
We used to be there.
Well, what did you say that? What happened? Was it just
I can't speak to that. I know that we had a code enforcement officer before.
Okay.
Is Dan West, did he retire?
And then we had some before, we had some after that.
There was a code enforcement officer, a couple.
The last one I remember was part-time, I thought.
Mhm.
I mean, that sounds like, I'm getting the feeling that's the way to go.
But we used to have it, so it's not like
Yes.
I remember her name.
So it just kind of, they.
dollars and cents, it's dollars and cents. That's all it boils down to is dollars and cents.
I mean, I think 25,000 would be a solid start. We obviously know there's health insurance, or it.
Well, depends. If it's not 32 hours a week and 30,
Yeah.
if it's not 30 hours a week, then it's not health insurance. So that's kind of where we're trying to get a sense of what you're after as a group, so that we can get some of those costs.
Excuse me, not to cut you off. But Kelsey, is that something, like, is there a HR resource manual that has that sort of thing to it? Would you be able to,
I'm sorry, what
Which
sort
part?
of
like,
thing?
I'm simplifying it, but I mean, is there like a manual that has positions? Code enforcement, this is generally nationally what the average is, and this is blah, blah, blah.
No.
That's why we're paying for that compensation study.
Yeah.
Fair point, okay.
No, not really, but I think we had possibly put code enforcement officer, because I know
I
it's
don't
something you
recall
guys might have
specifically.
discussed. I kind of think we put it in there, because we put in positions that we know have been tossed around
In the study?
in the study.
Oh,
We had additional,
We
A
had
slot.
X amount of
Okay.
slots,
Well,
so
that's-
if
that'd
we
be
had
great if
extra, we tried to put in things that we know you guys have mentioned at some point or another, and I want to say we included code enforcement officer.
I believe
I
so, but I can't
say
swear
for
to it.
sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can let you know.
Well,
we are proactive.
well, that's,
Right.
yeah, okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that as well. Thank you.
And what about some reserve funding for the fire company? EMS?
We hear about it every time, right? If there's a
Yeah.
capital need, 3 ambulances, I know it's what brings it out.
They're asking, this is an email I got from David. I just saw it in the inbox when I opened this. And we all have it, actually. So it's got several figures in here. I don't want to misrepresent them, but, okay. Well, then you can speak a little more.
What I'm saying about, target 40 to 45,000.
Okay. And is that open-ended, or is that toward fire and EMS, or any?
Actually, I originally thought it would be for the ambulance fund, but
You want to just slot it as
Yeah.
BFC and BFC EMS
Yeah.
and kind of work it through?
correct.
And you said about 40?
Yeah.
Obviously, we would talk to them about that too, but I mean, what are the,
Definitely.
I can't seem to get any information on these other than they're having them, these county meetings with the fire companies. I mean,
I have no-
like, we find out how much they're getting from the county when they tell us, right? I mean, we have no way of.
I don't have any other information than they meet.
Okay, yeah, that's, okay. So I'm sorry, what,
And we
we're looking at
also-
45 indefinite?
I thought you said 40.
40.
Did I?
Oh, 40.
Okay. all right. Okay, so now, talk about GIS, VOPS, Community Center, Code Enforcement, VOC, MES, capital fees.
Yeah, and a lot of this is going to determine on, not a lot of this, but these big items are going to determine, like what Natalie said, on the definition of use for infrastructure.
Well,
But I
and the
think it's
thing
kind
is,
of-
the thing is that they're likely ops. I don't see a carve out, and Natalie may have that somewhere. I have not seen, I can only speak for
No,
what
but-
I've reviewed.
Yeah,
I've read it a lot. I don't see a carve out for enterprise funds.
right, I mean, and I agree, we want to be, you know,
I think it's wise
yeah,
that
be
when we get our
cognizant.
multi-year plan somewhat framed up, I don't want to keep asking legislative services, what about this, what about this, what about this? I'd like us to frame something out, and then we can say, okay, these are some things we have some questions about. Let's do a little research, and then,
And I do think, Councilmember Nichols was not available here, but she did talk to me earlier today. I think the Public Works building also is a big priority for her, well, for all of us, but she had mentioned it.
okay, do you want to, keep in mind, we've got about $400,000 off to the side. How much would you like to put in addition?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up as well. So is the intent for the 400 left over to go straight to the reserve, or are we looking at maybe Plan Bravo?
What are you saying? I don't understand.
You're talking about the 400 that's left over from the police department?
The
Paid off.
$400,000, no, the $400,000 that the mayor and council moved over into capital, that's earmarked for
Right,
Public
okay.
Works building.
I mean, I think that's a good start, but I do believe that LDC funding could go towards that to some extent.
I'm just asking how much.
How much do we have left?
Yeah,
Not much.
yeah,
You all are on IOUs already, but keep throwing them out there. We'll put a shopping list together.
I don't know, 50,000
Again,
for a couple of years. I mean,
Again, it's probably $1 million.
Yeah, it's-
So you gotta do it over several years,
Get your
borrow
papers
money
on
to do it.
I got about $50,000 written down.
I feel like every time I want another dollar.
So the numbers that you have there, does it
Yes.
get close to 418?
150, 250, 275, 325. We're about close to $400,000.
Okay.
Close enough that I would say you should leave a margin of error.
You might be able to buy an AED.
Leave a margin of error.
Or 3 radios.
Now, keep in mind, this is a brainstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll try to frame some of this out in the shopping list, and then I think what would be wise is to listen to the work sessions, and then let's regroup. And if something else bubbles to the surface, what we will do is we can pass that along to us, we'll add it to the list. And I think after both work sessions, we regroup in May and say, this is kind of where we're at, or the latter part of April, and come up with a multi-year plan. I have a feeling it'll probably take 2 meetings, but we'll have a little bit better understanding of where things are at.
So are we anticipating, I mean, so you're envisioning, if this goes to, what'd you say? If this goes to May, the LDC is not going to even meet to decide if these things are approved
What do you mean?
right before our budget. It's going to be close, is I guess what I'm trying.
I don't think you would, to answer your question, I don't think that you should bank on any critical project for FY '24 to fund with LIG funds.
Are you including the option?
We've got a little bit of time. I think that LEOPS needs to be paid for. I think that we've got to find some way in the budgeting process to make it work. We're going to have to associate some of this money to it with the understanding it might not come through. But everything in legislation is pointing to the contrary, that it should come through, it will just take a
But I
little
just want to be
time.
cautious, and I wanted to clarify that that's what you were also thinking, that it wasn't exactly a done deal.
That's
per
all it
se.
is.
As far as the funding, we're going to do it, but the funding coming from,
The source of
the
the.
source of the funds coming from.
Yeah, we're gonna take a look at all of that,
Okay.
so, but I do think
We're
that,
good, we're going to do it. I just
well,
wanna
I
make sure.
think that with near certainty, you can say that LEOPS is an available funding source, or a available fundable project under public safety
Okay.
within the legislation. Now, it might take
I
some
agree.
push-ups to get the LVC to understand where we're at, but
I just wanted to get a sense of.
you wouldn't budget a project that you need in June, or July, August, or September with LIG funds, in other words.
Keeping in mind that your first LEOPS bill will not actually come until December of '24. I'm not by any means
Right.
advocating, oh, we don't have to think about that yet, but you do not have to pay that.
I just want to make sure
We have a little bit of
It's a year
time.
I just wanted to make, we'd be on the same page as you said.
All right?
Any chance you let Marie come in?
I'd like to wait until well, no, I'd like to wait until the public meeting if possible. And that's just because,
Well, are these other folks for this work session or for the?
no, I don't know.
For the
I
regular
mean, it's
session.
truly up to the discretion of the body, but I think generally for a work session, you don't,
I understand that.
but it's up to this group.
How tired are you? Want to stay till the end, or you?
It's actually at your discretion.
Okay, so with the, we'll add a place on our work session agenda, and now that is a public comment period. So anybody wishing to address the mayor and council regarding the work session topics, please just stand name and street name, please.
Marie Belong, West Street. One of the things that I think keeps getting forgotten in all of this is what is really important to this town, and that is your infrastructure. You cannot have development, you can't have any of it without your base being good. Now, West Street has been ignored for 50 years. Buckingham Elementary, or Buckingham Estates went in and was attached to old pipes then, and that was done with the town's approval at that time. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on that general fund has never funded. That's why I have a problem even with the capital fee. A lot of that should be still coming from the general fund, because you are way behind on taking care of what's really important. Not Main Street. That's all taken care of as far as I'm concerned. You've got that working. Get the rest of the town working. We shouldn't be having potholes. I trip on West Street all the time. If I'm not looking where I'm going, I could fall, because there's so many stupid ruts in there. And there's no reason for it. When you walk uptown and you see places being replaced over and over for safety reasons, blah, 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 but they've got sidewalks that were good, taken out to put in new ones. Oh, well, it's grant money from the state, we'll do that. We'll get that grant money on our street. You have 2 schools that street uses, and that's ignored all the time. Buckingham Elementary and Worcester Country School. You don't think those people use our street to go up and down? You should be there during the day when school lets out. Buses. And then all of the farm trucks use that road. So no, you have ignored West Street as long as I have been coming here. And it's getting really annoying to listen to. I mean, you can want radios, you can want parks, you can want all of that stuff. None of it means anything when I'm tripping on my street. I don't even have sidewalks, but I'd like a road that's even. I was going to a physical therapy because of my back. It was because when you walk on the road, you have a slope if you're walking where you're supposed to. And I was told to, well, walk against the traffic at one point to even out my body. And there's just, when I listen to these meetings, I have to wonder. Basics, you guys have forgotten what basic means, and that's what's really frustrating. And I'll tell you what, I can't believe that this isn't in violation of handicap accessibility, because I can't hear any of what you're talking about half the time, or it's mumbles. Isn't there a way to turn this system up? You can hear it over the microphone that's there. When I'm at home, I can hear everything. So it's something to do with this room. And there shouldn't be that problem. It's really, really frustrating. And I've stayed away because I didn't want to have to do this, but I'm really tired of it. You know, it's all well and good to make these wonderful plans, but get the basic stuff taken care of first. And that's getting our streets, all of them, not just the special ones around Main Street. That business of Broad Street to Washington Street, that's already been done. I don't know how many times. Get from Washington Street up, and then I'll be impressed. I'm sorry.
Now, Ms. Marie,
Thank you, Mary.
was it easier? I know we used to have the chairs up closer to like the podium here. Was it easier to hear then, or?
Well, it would, I mean, anything would help. You guys mumble when you're up there. I think you should sit out here and take turns and see. There's not, the only one I can hear is Zach, and that's because he keeps his mic right by his mouth.
That's because I see you out
And he
there, and
speaks.
I keep you in my mind. I'm like, I hear Miss Marie saying that I got to speak up. But what I'm asking is it helpful if maybe we look at reconfiguring
Yeah, I could
here
go closer,
a
but
little?
I don't understand
We'll try
why you can't get a microphone that actually works like this. Why is this one picking up all of that and those don't, that are sitting right in front of me?
Yeah, that is something I don't understand. But maybe we can look at reconfiguring to try and get some of the chairs a little closer too. And we'll be cognizant of our mics. Anybody else that wishes to address the mayor and council regarding the work session? Okay. If not, we will adjourn with the work session and be back here in about 5 minutes for the regular session. Thank you.